Good evening, everyone in Luqman Nation. This is Jackie Luqman.
And I'm Mr. Shaheed Luqman.
And welcome to the first episode of Live in Luqman Nation, Live in Coffee, Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation.
Which is the most dangerous show, threatening show on social media today, anywhere.
The first episode in 2020. And man, we're starting this year, this decade, with some incredibly troubling news. So buckle up, grab a snack,
right? Let
your friends know, hey, if you can start a watch party on Facebook, we'd appreciate it. Drag some people over to here. We've got to talk about this conflict with Iran, what it means, what led to it, what could happen out of it, and to parse through the lies that are being told in corporate media. So we're going to give you guys a couple of minutes to gather your resources. Hey, Greg Kennard, we see you over there on Facebook. Happy New Year. We've had an eventful year.
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to say happy birthday to my father. It's his birthday today.
Happy birthday, Pop.
Yep,
happy
he's,
birthday.
A young 73 years old.
73?
That's it.
Wow.
Yep, 73
years old. Yeah, he's a young 73 years old.
Yep. So if he's watching or if he's going to watch that, happy birthday to you, and I love you.
We love you, Pop. Yeah, the 2019 was eventful for us.
It was.
We were busy. I mean, full-time job, going up to Baltimore twice a week, hosting or being a guest on any show that would call us to talk to us about politics.
Yeah.
I mean, so that was at least 2-3 days a week.
That's right.
If we could get to somebody's studio, we would. Usually it was on a phone, via Skype. So, I'd be running home from work, or I'd be sneaking into a conference room at the office, on Skype doing interviews. You would pull the truck over, to find a quiet place and do interviews with me. And we did that for, that wasn't just last year. We, going up to Baltimore with Real News, that was last year. But all that other stuff was the past, 2-3 years?
Oh, yeah. Accelerated in that pace,
Yeah, and now we are a regular co-host on By Any Means Necessary on Sputnik Radio. Excuse me. So sorry about that. And man, it's just, wow.
Yep, and we expect 2020 to be even better. But again, as we said before, we're going to always do what we did, is to just bring you the news through our Black Pan-Africanist socialist perspective.
Yep. So we've got a couple people on the stream on YouTube. What's up, Jeremiah D? And all right, we're not going to be on here for forever. I'm going to be better with time. We're going to be better with being regular with our shows here. My brother's on. What's up, Klee? If you hop off before you learn some stuff, bro, I'm going to call you. We're going to have problems. So you stay and you learn some stuff, okay? And tell your friends out there in Jarrett, because I know they need this education. So,
but in all seriousness, what we're about to discuss is actually it concerns all of us. These are some major events that just taken place within the last 24 to 48 hours.
Right.
So within all seriousness, we really need to pay attention to what's about to take place here, because the events are starting to really escalate.
Yeah.
And just before we started the stream, I was out there trying to catch up on some latest developments, and it's not good. It's not good. And we who study these things, we understood that this strike, this killing, assassination of Qasem Suleimani, I believe his name is, right? And also the Quds, the Iraqi militia commander.
Right. That's a great. I'm so glad you said that, because we talked about it earlier on By Any Means Necessary and on Sputnik. This is all we were talking about, because this is a major event, and we're going to tell you why. But we talked a lot about the assassination, because that's what this was, of Qasem Soleimani,
Right.
who is the general of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards elite Quds force.
He was actually, he was actually the second in command underneath the Ayatollah.
That is incredibly important in this conversation.
The only person he answered to was the supreme leader. He didn't have to answer to anyone else.
There's actually a picture. I can't remember if it was on Twitter or anywhere, but anyway, it shows the Ayatollah kissing General Suleimani on the head.
Yes.
And so but you mentioned that also the Iraqi general. What was his name again?
I can't recall his name offhand, but if anybody, I can't recall his name offhand. I should have written it down. But I think Mohannes or something like that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, stuff is just moving that fast.
Right.
You know, Trump announced that he ordered this strike to stop a war. Right? Now, you've got... Okay, let's be clear. There are tensions in Iraq right now. Mm-hmm. Over the influence of Iran in Iraq. That is a social movement. Right? That is not like we hate Iran type of thing. That is an issue of the people of Iraq do not like the influence of Iran, the government of Iran, interfering in the affairs of Iraq.
Well, let's be more. Let's put it more in context. Is the fact that most of the people who are protesting the influence of Iran are Sunni. So you have in Iraq where you have a large Shiite population, which Iran is a Shiite country, and so but this influence of Iran has always been there. I mean, once they removed Saddam Hussein was the one that was keeping everything. He was he was like Tito in Yugoslavia. So when you had the Shiite and the Sunni. The Shiite the large Shiite population in Iraq and the Sunni population in Iraq was basically kept at bay from conflict by the strong arm of Saddam Hussein. You know, so but again, like in Libya, like everywhere else where America decides that they want a so-called regime change, once they remove Saddam Hussein out the way, then what happens is that it creates a vacuum,
right? And
so and governments and those with interests are going to take advantage of that vacuum,
right?
And the United States, mistakenly or maybe not mistakenly, didn't understand that you can't control those factions with just military force alone,
right?
You know, so you always have when the United States invaded Iraq. Several years ago, you already had a large Shiite militia under Muqtada al-Sadr, and it was and they couldn't do anything with him because of the power and influence and the following that he had. In fact, he's still there today. He just called on his followers to protect Iraq. So the demonstrations, the way that is being reported to us is that you have Iraqis who celebrated the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, but they don't give you the context of that celebration. That celebration is the fact that a lot of these people are Sunni, and the Sunni, of course, do not like the influence of the Shiite militias or governments, you know, and so a lot of this is agitated also by Saudi Arabia, which is the largest Sunni and the most powerful Sunni country in that region.
Right.
So, and they also took shots at Qasem Soleimani. So this wasn't the first time that Soleimani was targeted for assassination. The Saudis, the Israelis, they all tried to do it. In fact, there was an interesting thing that you and I talked about before we went on air, is the fact that General Petraeus, who was the lead general in the Iraqi invasion, he stated that that Qasem Soleimani, General Qasem Soleimani, was his chief antagonist. That a lot of the military planning and things that cause problems for U.S. forces, not only in Iraq, but also in Syria and places where you would find U.S. forces, that he was the chief architect of a lot of the military strategy that was happening through these proxy groups that Iran was acting through. So what General Petraeus said was the fact that there was a caravan convoy that was carrying Qasem Soleimani, and a decision was made to attack that convoy in order to wipe him out. But higher ups in the Pentagon, other generals, went against it. And Petraeus said this was a major decision. He said, but they went against attacking that convoy because of what he said, quote, the blowback that it would cause us.
Right. Now, so, when did that happen? When was that? Well,
this was during the Iraqi invasion. There wasn't a specific timeline.
Right.
But this is the Iraqi during the Iraqi invasion when armed conflict was going on.
Right.
And so here you have the generals, U.S. generals saying, well, we better leave this guy alone because there is no advantage in attacking him, especially when we have troops on the ground. The United States is at a very vulnerable position. Now, we're going to get into that vulnerable position, what we're going to talk about, Jackie, but let's be clear that this was a very reckless move on the part of the United States, on the part of Donald Trump. And I personally believe that the statement was that his assassination was caused, that was ordered because they wanted to prevent
a war.
Right, but they also said that it was some intimate action, some action that was going to that he was planning against American interests that they stopped because of the assassination. That's their line. What I actually believe is that, and I'm going to back it up with what I said. This was not so much to stop an attack on America as it was to further the interests of Israel.
That's a good point. That's a good. So yeah, let's get into some of this, backing some of this stuff up, because it's important to understand the region. You gave some really good background information between the tension that's existed for a long time between the Sunni and the Shia in the region, which is why outside forces cannot and have never been successful in interfering in these kinds of conflicts in this region. Because they don't know anything about them. Exactly. They don't know anything about these people. So they believe that they, meaning the United States government, can go into regions where there are these type of, what would you call it? Would that be like sectarian type of conflict between the Sunni and the Shia?
Yeah, sectarian. Yeah.
So we don't do that well. The United States government doesn't do that well. We don't understand that people they live in the same region and have differences that are based on culture, religion, tradition, all those kinds of things, and they can coexist as long as there's somebody in place keeping them somewhat apart, keeping the pot from boiling over.
Right, exactly.
But see, as long as there are resources in that region, aside from the fact that, the United States diplomacy is never something that this government has given a crap about. Oh, we're on our own platform. I can cuss. So,
yeah, that's right.
So, aside from the fact that diplomacy is something that diplomacy with brown nations, let me make that clear.
Yes.
Because see, the United States will enter into diplomatic talks with Germany, with the UK, with every other European nation that it has, up to this point, that it has some type of conflict with. But brown nations, oh no, there's no diplomacy, there's no talks, and yellow nations too. There's no, because that's why they hate China. This all yellow fear, yellow terror business, and that's all this really boils down to. It's a threat to American imperialism. The only people who threaten American imperialism are non-European countries.
And it's the reason why they threaten American imperialism. Well, let's put it this way. The reason why that there is no diplomacy when it comes to brown and black nations is because, and not with so-called European nations, is because all of the stuff they want is under the feet of brown and black people.
There you go. So instead of negotiating with brown and black people to share these resources, what can we do for you so that we can have access? No, we're just going to bomb you. We're just going to bomb the shit out of you until we kill enough of you that you are ineffective in challenging us when we come in and take your stuff. That's the American way.
And it's also the white supremacist way.
That's the white supremacist way. So that's a part of this, right? Then there is the issue of, this is also a really jacked up kind of response to the importance of Qasem Soleimani in keeping ISIS and Al-Qaeda out of Baghdad. The only reason ISIS and Al-Qaeda never took Baghdad and several other key cities.
But they never took Lebanon.
They never took Lebanon. Yeah. They never took Afghanistan, Pakistan.
Right.
There might be factions in those areas, but Al-Qaeda and ISIS did not conquer those territories. You know why? Qasem Soleimani. That's why. So the United States, with all of its superior military power, its, high-powered, very accurate stealth drone weaponry, could not keep ISIS or Al-Qaeda from taking any of those regions, especially Baghdad in Iraq, without the help, without the assistance of the ground forces of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and the special unit of the Quds Force that was led by Suleimani, Suleimani.
Right.
He was the architect of the strategy that kept those forces out of those key cities in Iraq.
Exactly.
So it is not. It's ironic in an obscene way that only the United States could architect this kind of irony, that this government would assassinate the military leader in the city that he and his forces helped protect from the terrorists that this government created when it invaded Iraq.
That's a very, very great irony. Yep. And if you want, just as a side note, if you want to know how serious this is and the capabilities of a nation that we're going to go to war with, because trust me, when you assassinate a general of that level, that's an act of war. I mean, what would have happened if the Iranian military would have assassinated any of our top generals?
Right.
Oh no, we wouldn't be sitting back here talking about restraint. No, we would be, right now they would be shock and awe going somewhere.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And just as a side note, if you remember, the Israeli invasion of Lebanon about 15 years ago, when the Israelis invaded Lebanon to uproot Hezbollah. Hezbollah pushed Israel out. Hezbollah gave them a great, as George Galloway said one time, gave them a great shellacking. And I remember during that time, how the American media was really in shock that this mighty Israeli army got rooted out by Hezbollah fighters that were armed and financed by Iran. Now I bring that up for a reason. I bring that up to say that the United States not only miscalculated the political dynamics in that region, they're also underestimating the capabilities of the Iranian military infrastructure. Because again, Israel 15 years ago were defeated by Hezbollah. They actually got pushed out in their invasion of Lebanon. And then they lost their minds. And they lost their minds by this massive airstrike in Lebanon, destroying everything. So much so that the Lebanese prime minister was asking the United States to restrain Israel, because Israel was so frustrated that they couldn't root out Hezbollah that they just went on this massive air bombing campaign. And when Condoleezza Rice, who was the Secretary of State at the time, when she went over there to see, after the United States refused to do anything about Israel and just let them just destroy the infrastructure of this country, when Condoleezza Rice decided, well, let me go over there and talk to the Prime Minister, he told her to go back home. He said, we don't need you over here. But the point being is that nobody knew that Hezbollah had that military capability of going up against a country as powerful as Israel. Israel is the 5th powerful army on the planet.
Right.
Number 5. And Hezbollah basically defeated them. They haven't been back in Lebanon since. You know, so what we're talking about is the United States underestimated. And let's be clear, military logistics is so important. Israel is right there in the neighborhood.
Right.
Now, why do I bring that up? Because military logistics is important. In order for the United States to fight a war with Iran, there has to be a lot of. Well, remember when every time that we went for the first Desert Storm, and when we went to Iraq, how much equipment had to be moved to base it in Saudi Arabia?
Right.
So you know, and by the time you move that type of equipment. And that's one of the reasons why the United States, they learned from that. And that's why one of the reasons why the United States had put up the bases that they did in order to be on the scene when that happens.
Right.
But again, you're talking about a country, Iran, in which, you know, this isn't Iraq. You know, this isn't going up against, ISIS. This is going against, this is a sophisticated military, this is a sophisticated country with military assets that would really be, as I heard one expert say earlier on one of the news stations, that this would probably be the toughest foe that the United States had probably fought since World War II.
And let's be clear that we're not talking about nuclear assets, right?
No.
Because this is the lie that the United States government has been telling about Iran, especially this administration, claiming that Iran and Israel does it too. You know, Bibi Netanyahu, believe us, y'all, this is, and we'll get to that in a minute, this is not just, you know, Trump doing this because he woke up today and decided, oh, I know, I'll drone strike the, you know, the leader of the Quds force and the second in command in Iran. This is the United States is once again being Israel's bitch. That's part of this. But getting back to nuclear weapons, the Trump administration falsely claimed, they just blatantly lied, right along with Israel, that Iran was violating the nuclear arms agreement that was put in place under the Obama administration. Every other country in the world that signed on to that agreement verified, along with independent verification agencies, went to Iran, checked out the facilities, and verified that Iran was not enriching uranium for weapons. They were building power plants.
Right. Which was their right to do under international law.
Exactly. So the Trump administration manufactures this lie, along with Israel, that Iran has been enriching uranium to build nuclear bombs. The only entity that violated the 2015 weapons deal was the United States. So when that happened, Iran had every right to do what it did, was to say, well, you know what? You're not going to abide by the deal? Okay, that's fine. So now we're not going to promise that we're not going to start enriching uranium for nuclear. So this kind of thing was manufactured. But Iran still has not begun, because the people, I don't know how people think nuclear weapons are built. Like, I wonder if people think that nuclear weapons are like built in a day.
Well, no, and I mean, it would be even, the reason why this whole lie, as you said, about Iran, having a nuclear weapons program, the United States has made it impossible for any country outside Pakistan, probably North Korea. It's probably the last country that is really capable of really building nuclear weapons without any interference. Because the United States has made it impossible for any country to get what it needs to build nuclear weapons. The amount of the uranium that you would need, and it's just not uranium. You have to have a certain type of uranium for nuclear weapons manufacturing. You have to have certain tubes. You have to have certain equipment. And the United States have basically made that impossible for nations that don't already have it, that infrastructure. They have made it impossible for any nation to go and get this type of material, especially nations that the United States have a beef with.
Right.
So if you have a beef with the United States, it's almost impossible for you to get whatever you need to build nuclear weapons because nobody's going to sell to you. And remember, some years ago, when the United States commandeered a North Korean vessel for taking these type of tubings that was en route to Iran, and the United States commandeered that, and so you know, all along it was really this whole circus that we knew. Those of us who again study this thing, we knew that there was no way that the Iranians could enrich uranium. They could do all of these things, but trust me, we forget that Israel killed like 10 nuclear scientists.
Yeah,
and you know, I mean, allegedly, but that you know that the Mossad allegedly murdered like up to 10 Iranian nuclear scientists, which threw the Iranian nuclear program back decades.
Right.
So if you don't have the scientists to do these things, which was the plan for their assassination to halt the Iranian nuclear program, you know. And this is another thing too. Even with the assassination of these 10 nuclear scientists, it didn't stop the Iranian nuclear program. So again, the Iranians still had the capabilities because what they did was, you know, remember their nuclear facilities were bombed, so they moved it underground, and so the scientists were being assassinated. So they had to put their scientists into hiding. But those that were left, it still did not stop Iran from pursuing their nuclear energy program, not nuclear weapons program, because because they denied that. But there was no proof that they were embarking on a nuclear weapons program. So again, that shows you how this country had miscalculated and really underestimated Iranian capability. You kill their scientists, you're making it possible for them to get whatever they need, yet the program still continues.
Right. I mean, either Mossad and United States intelligence are woefully inadequate and ineffective, and we know how deadly the Mossad is, so we know that's not true. We know how deadly the CIA can be, so we know that's not true. Either they get everything wrong, and Iran are just a bunch of extra sneaky people who can build some nuclear bombs underground and nobody finds out, or somebody's lying, and somebody's been lying.
The Iranians fought an 8-year war with Iraq, when Iraq was the 4th largest army in the world.
Right.
And not only the 4th largest army in the world, Iraq had, the United States was supplying Iraq with chemical weapons, with the most sophisticated military weaponry that the United States had in order for Saddam Hussein, who was on their side at the time, not our side, on their side at the time. The United States supported because the United States had always wanted to defeat Iran. This goes back also historically with Mesopotamia and all this stuff. But again, it has always wanted to eliminate Iran. The United States had never. The United States have always wanted to destroy the Islamic Revolution there. And the Islamic Revolution, when Ayatollah Khomeini, when the revolution overthrew their puppet Shah, the United States never forgave that.
And let me stick a pin in that real quick, because people don't understand how long the United States have been interfering in Iran. This is not like, again, y'all, this is not like this particular president woke up one morning and like, I'm gonna fuck with Iran. No, that's not. The United States overthrew the leader of Iran before the Shah, who everybody hated.
Yeah, democratically elected government.
Yeah, and what was his name?
That I don't know.
I can't remember. We'll have to look it up. One of you will get. See, that's how I know we're getting off track, because we can't remember the names of people that we keep bringing up. But anyway, what's going on, Maurice? We see you on YouTube, son. But
I do know that leader was democratically elected.
Exactly.
The United States had formatted a coup, and then installed their puppet Shah, the Shah of Iran.
The Iranian people hated the Shah of Iran, but he ruled Iran with an iron, brutal fist for 25 years. So, look, we've been meddling in Iran's business for a long time. But, okay, so now we've cleared up the whole nuclear weapons business, because you're going to hear that lie. Be prepared to hear the lie that the United States had to attack because Iran, that General Suleimani was planning to use nuclear weapons again. Oh, be prepared, it's bullshit. Don't believe that stuff. Here's where Suleimani was a threat. And it goes back to what you said about the fierceness of the Iranian Guard and Iran's army being so fierce. Over the years of this conflict in the Middle East that the United States has started with the invasion of Iraq, General Soleimani, who is very, very beloved in Iran and in the entire region.
Almost at mythic levels in Iran. I mean, the people, he was seen as not only a very capable military man, but he's also considered personally a brave hero.
Exactly. Here's why. Here's one of the reasons why. Over the course of this ridiculous quagmire that this government has created, General Soleimani has amassed an army of, the estimates are conservatively 280,000 troops in all of the countries that the United States has put its sticky, filthy footprints and left broken and bombed bodies. Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Pakistan. All of these people in all of these regions have fighters who are loyal to General Suleimani. Let me stop mispronouncing his name. Not that, so it's like they're not necessarily loyal to Iran. They're loyal to him. And again, this is a conservative estimate of how many fighters are in this army that in all of these different regions who are loyal to this man. So here the United States comes along and assassinates this man out of nowhere. How do you think those people feel about this right now?
Well, the leader of Hezbollah just stated that he said it was the responsibility of all fighters, and we said all fighters, to avenge his death. But imagine being a U.S. soldier. Now, this is where we need to start paying attention. Imagine being a U.S. soldier thrown into that system where you have these different groups who are loyal to either Qasem Soleimani, who's loyal to maybe the Iranian cause, and what Iran is trying to do. See, we have to understand that people aren't stupid. That people are people. And what I mean by that is that the people over there understand what's going on. They understand the political threats that's coming their way from the United States and others. They understand that this can affect their existence in this area and how they live and the way their quality of life. They're fighting for their families and children and everything else, just like we're fighting. But the difference between the United States government and the United States military and those over there is, see, we haven't been droned. Jackie and I aren't going to the Marlow Heights $5 movie theater with a bunch of other poor black people, and all of a sudden we're mistaken for a terrorist.
An Al-Qaeda terrorist.
Right, having a meeting, and all of a sudden, innocent outing on just going to the movies, we get droned, and then the only thing that the government says, oops, our bag, we thought that, this was up. This is a constant occurrence for people over there. This is a constant threat for people over there. And guess what? Just like you and I wouldn't like it, they don't like it. And they understand that, hey, look, we're not going to live this way. And so they understand that that right now, especially if you're fighting against Saudi forces in Yemen, or if you're trying to prevent Israeli excursions into Lebanon, or if you're trying to keep Russian and American bombers from bombing you in Syria, they all understand that, hey, look, in order for us to live like all people want to live, then we have to fight this oppressor. See, this is something that's alien to us. This is something that's alien to us. We don't understand that mind state. So, but over there, it's like we have to fight this oppressor. And so, because this is literally life and death for us. And so the only friend we got right now is Iran. Iran is the only friend we got right now that is willing to fund and supply us, to fight this oppressor, so that we don't have to worry about being droned because some kid over in Las Vegas who's controlling the drone is looking at me as some blip on a video game.
Right.
You know, so imagine being an American soldier dropped off in that, where you don't know who the enemy is. You don't know who the enemy is. They're not wearing uniforms. You don't know who the enemy is. And so, and again, you're talking about an enemy that is being equipped with some of the most sophisticated weaponry. You know, another thing that we have to understand is that we have to look at our experience already. We haven't officially gone to war with Iran, even though that's a declaration of war, what they did. But look at where we are now. 20 years in Afghanistan, no victory. In fact, the Taliban control more of Afghanistan than he did before the United States got there. Let's look at in Iraq, where the Iraqis were told that once they got removed Saddam Hussein, that it was going to be a free and democratic Iraq, where you would be at peace with your neighbors and all this stuff that George Bush spoke of when he invaded Iraq. And now what it is, it's just like every other failed state. The only thing that they can point to is this big ass U.S. embassy, which is the largest embassy, U.S. embassy in the world, which has all of the protections. Because remember, this is a fortress. Because they knew what neighborhood they were in, right. So they built this as a fortress, and guess what? It was breached. It
was breached. It used to be a fortress. It's not a fortress anymore.
And now it's closed.
Exactly. I think I forgot to go back to the point about the Iraqi leader, the Iraqi military leader, who was also killed in this attack.
Well, right. And somebody, if you have his name, please send it to us. But again, this is another thing. The Iraqi military leader who was assassinated along with General Suleimani was actually supposed to be a U.S. ally. He reported his militia force reported directly to the Prime Minister of Iraq. So but then again, we seen what Donald Trump and them did with the Kurds and how they abandoned the Kurds.
Right.
You know. Right. So being an ally to the United States is really nothing to brag about.
It's almost a death sentence. It's almost like a target on your back.
The only one that benefits from being an ally to the United States in that area is Israel and Saudi Arabia.
So, let's see. Did we get all the points leading up to that thing?
No, but I want this point about Israel.
Okay.
Because I don't want to. I gotta get comfortable here. Why do I think that this was done more to help Israel than it was to prevent any impending attack on the United States? All right, number one, let's look at the lie. What impending attack could he have done to us? First of all, the United States military force over there has been withdrawn. We have drawn down to such a level that there is no really significant targets that that Soleimani or any Iranian military attack would have gained anything. You know, there's not a significant troop presence in Iraq anymore.
Right. It was 650 troops.
Right. There's not a significant troop presence in Syria. There's not a significant American troop presence anywhere in that part of the world. So a man of this level, a general of this level, there's no way that he's going to spend resources and assets to attack U.S. interests. When there's really hardly any U.S. personnel and stuff there. That's the big number one lie. The reason why I said that I believe that that Israel, it benefited Israel more. The Trump administration, since his term as president, has been doing the bidding of Israel since he became president. Moving the embassy, U.S. embassy, to Jerusalem when it went against international law, when all of the world basically condemned it. He did it anyway. He signed executive orders recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golden Heights. He also signed executive orders allowing Israel to annex Palestinian territory. So everything that Trump has done. Even so that he was trying to push legislation to make Judaism.
Nationality.
Right.
Yeah.
So so all of these things was done for the benefit of Israel. So the biggest, the one who would have taken Suleimani as the biggest threat have been Israel, and this works out because first of all, the United States acted, in my view, as a hit man, as they always had done, but they acted as a hit man for the Netanyahu government. This works out for Netanyahu, who's going through his own legal troubles at the time. This takes this distracts people off of his problems, and it also distracts Trump from people off of the impeachment, and it distracts people, and it also here it is going into election cycle. This also gives Trump this feather in his cap as being even tougher on Iran. You know, so they don't care about going to war and what that would mean to the rest of us. We should care. But long as it furthers their agenda, furthers their goal, get them a second term in office and all this stuff, they don't care how many people that they would sacrifice and how many lives they would sacrifice.
That is exactly what this means in regard to Israel. I'm so glad you brought up Benjamin Netanyahu, because people do not have a clear understanding of just how much Israelis hate that man. They really don't like Bibi Netanyahu. And they don't like him because unlike other, prime minister in Israel? The equivalent of president. Unlike other prime ministers in Israel who have gotten into trouble and have faced consequences for whatever legal troubles they had, this one won't. He is basically telling the Knesset, I don't care what y'all do about these charges of corruption, because, you know, he was charged, and I think he was indicted on corruption charges. And he's just like, and I'm not going anywhere. You can't do anything to me. So there's real contempt in Israel for Netanyahu. But please don't think that means that the people of Israel give a damn about the Palestinians. Because the alternative to Netanyahu is somebody who is just as genocidal toward the Palestinians as he is. That there is no left party in Palestine that is interested in being just toward the Palestinian people. So get that out of your head. People in Israel want Netanyahu gone. They don't want the way Israel exists in regard to Palestine and the rest of the world gone. They like that just fine. So the issue is the unpopularity. I'm so glad you brought that up. The unpopularity of Netanyahu in Israel right now, and the unpopularity of Trump outside of the GOP going into the 2020 elections right now. Now, Trump's problems may not translate into a dip in approval ratings like the white evangelicals, the Christian evangelicals, the editor-in-chief of Christianity Today writing the editorial saying that Trump needs to be removed because of his moral failings that no Christian should ever continue to abide. It took them Bamas long enough. The League of Mormon Women came out and repudiated Trump for his moral. But, you know, so there are other Christian leaders who are coming out, Christian leaders, quote unquote, coming out, calling Trump on his lack of morality and finally saying stuff against him. In my opinion, these people are too little too late, but they're white supremacists, so, I mean, please don't think that just because somebody calls himself a Christian that they're not also a white supremacist. So, I mean, but that kind of stuff may not matter in approval ratings among Trump's base, may not translate to lost votes of any significance in any of the swing states. But for Trump, whose ego is enormous and fragile like an egg, it means something to him that the people who he has he made such a big deal to court, the white evangelical Christians, now they're turning on him. How do we know this? Today, he had a rally at some mega church appealing once again to white evangelical Christians. Again, the people who are turning on Trump, there was a report in Politico today about the members of the GOP are secretly, they may support Trump publicly, but they're secretly disgusted with him. Okay, that's all fine and good. You're still going to vote with him, you know, for everything he does. But that kind of stuff does get under his skin. We should have seen that by now. So it is important to him on a personal level that people are turning against him. So in that way, yeah, Trump is doing exactly the same thing that This airstrike, this assassination benefits Trump in exactly the same way that it benefits Netanyahu, except for on a personal level. For Netanyahu, it's like, let's deflect from this other issue over here because I want to stay in power. For Trump, it's like, let's deflect from impeachment and these these other issues. The fact that I just got indicted and I had to pay back money to a charity that I stole money from. Let's deflect from all of these issues all these other issues over here because I'm mad that people don't think I'm great. So, I mean, it is important, I think, to kind of parse that out a little bit. But now let's get to the oil. Because, look, even if all this other stuff wasn't true, the fact of the matter is, Iran is sitting on 50 billion barrels, 50 billion with a B, barrels of oil reserves that they just discovered in November of last year. Now, I know people kind of get tired of hearing black people, especially Pan-Africanists, talk about American imperialism and American exceptionalism and American colonialism and how evil this empire really is. And I know that drives some of y'all nuts. It's true, but I understand you get tired of hearing it. But look, when you look at the stock prices that went up today after this government assassinated 2 military leaders on foreign soil at a civilian airport with no authorization from Congress or anybody else. When you look at the stock market and you see that oil prices shot through the roof and defense company stocks also shot through the roof, if you are still under the impression that war is not good business, it's not big business, and that business is not still good for these people, we don't know what to tell you. In November, Iran announced finding this $50 billion barrels of oil reserves in Iran. A few months before, the United States claimed that Iran attacked Saudi Arabia's Aramco oil field with drones. Yeah. That's what they claim. We still have no proof of that because the United States don't do proof. So then Trump comes out and says, remember this? I know you remember this. Trump comes out and says, we're going to keep all the oil. We already have all the oil. After they struck back at Syria, in Syria, at Iranian forces in Syria, they said that they were going to keep all of the Syrian oil. Syria's like, what did we do? Donald Trump says we're going to keep Syrian oil. The Washington Post headline that day when he said that was, Trump says U.S. will keep Syrian oil. That's illegal. Let us make something very clear to y'all. This man does not care what is illegal, what is immoral. He doesn't care if something seems impossible. He doesn't care if his military advisors are telling him, don't do this, this will be a disaster. I'm convinced that somebody in the Pentagon, not that I have any faith in them, just understanding that they understand the lay of the land better than he does. I am convinced somebody in the Pentagon said, Mr. President, this is a bad idea, don't do it. But he doesn't care because he's a greedy white rich bastard, he and all his friends, and they wanted that 50 billion barrels of oil in Iran. And there was nothing and no one that was going to stand in the way of them and their fossil fuel profiteering, war-mongering and profiteering friends from getting their hands on it. At the end of the day, folks, even if you don't believe any of the other stuff about Israel, about, the sectarian issues, you don't believe any of the other stuff, at the end of the day, if you cannot see that this is all about the continued war for oil, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I mean, Trump didn't invent, corporate interests sending us to war. I think that when you say that Trump doesn't care about the legalities, I think that he's in a long line of U.S. presidents that didn't care about legalities. I mean, unilateral. I learned about. I learned the word unilateral from George Bush. Either you're with us or you're against us, and and if you don't follow us, we're just going to do it alone. The United States hasn't honored any opinion by the United Nations. The United Nations, no matter how many resolutions that the United States has passed tell the United States not to do something such, they just say, oh, well, we're going to do it anyway. This is not unique to Trump. It's not unique to Trump because we remember how Dick Cheney and Halliburton and the roles that they played. We can go all the way back to the oil magnates that financed the Nazi regime and the American banks that played a role in crippling Germany with unjust financial burdens, which had the people rally around Hitler. And then finance both sides of the war. You know what I mean? And so, so these corporate entities have always had their little dirty hands in U.S. Militarism and in the U.S. militarism and activities that go on, which is mostly driven. Most of the wars that we fought in, I always said that maybe World War II was probably the last just war that I believe this country ever fought in. Everything else was about subduing brown people, either in the name of democracy or defeating communism. All the things that they try to use to justify their militarism and their imperialism is basically just to subdue the brown world and to further the goals of American imperialism, which is also American white supremacy or Western white supremacy. And that's what it is. So we see the same actions taking place right here now. So Trump is not the inventor of none of these things.
Right.
He's just the next player that's carrying the agenda of corporate white supremacist policy. So and let's talk about this oil. They're not going to ever get it. And the reason why they're not going to get it, because you're not going to subdue Iran enough in order to take over their oil fields. So you're not going to get it. What the United States is actually hoping for is regime change. They're hoping to put another puppet in Iran. They know they're not going to take over Iran militarily. What they're hoping is to have another regime change where they can put a puppet in there who will just, give them the key at night to get all the oil that they want.
You know what? I'm so glad you said that. Because so today, Trump said, we didn't do this to start a war. We did this to end one.
Right.
And what did he say after he said that? He specifically said, we don't want regime change. We're willing to negotiate.
Right, exactly.
You heard it first on Luqman Nation. Y'all heard it first from Abdulshahid Luqman on Luqman Nation. Watch and wait for something to happen to the leader in Iran.
Exactly.
Just wait.
Now while we get ready to wind this down, let's have a talk.
Okay.
Between just you in the audience and us. Now, after this strike, and way before this strike, why isn't it, and I'm asking this rhetorically, why isn't there a robust anti-war movement in the United States? I mean, these streets should be filled right now. I mean, the prospect of this government initiating another war, where the wars that we already been in have cost us trillions and trillions of dollars, and yet the Democrats and Republicans is giving the Pentagon billions more. They even created a space force, but yet there's no money in for universal health care. There's no money for proper schooling. There's no money, and they're constantly cutting at the social net, where thousands and thousands of people are going to be put off food stamps. and all. So they're doing all this. There's never no money for infrastructure. There's never no money to make sure that we have a quality of life. There's never no money in these corporations to make sure that people have enough money to live on. But yet you're about ready. We already spent trillions of dollars, and now we're getting ready to go into a war with Iran, where there'll be trillions of dollars more spent, and maybe thousands and thousands of troops losing their lives, and yet the streets are empty over here. Now this is where we gotta stop being pussies, man. The American people, and I know people don't like what I'm about ready to say, but we're pussies. Because you know why? Because there is no reason why that we should sit back idly and just let this government run us into another war. But I'm going to tell you why we've been pussified when it comes to the anti-war movement. The last robust anti-war movement was in the 60s, and it's during the Vietnam era. Really? And there was a reason for that. Because white kids was getting drafted.
Oh, I see what you mean.
See, white kids was getting drafted, and so all of these middle class kids, the hippies, because they didn't come from the ghetto, the hippies, these hippies that you see putting flowers and guns and all this stuff and what's not, they were middle class white kids rebelling against the ideology of their parents, who came out of World War II being conservative.
That's a good point.
So they came out of World War II with this conservative attitude towards America's role in the world. And so what happened was these middle class white kids was being drafted, and they was like, no, we ain't going. If you had a little bit of money, then being middle class, then you was like Bill Clinton, you ran to Canada. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you did not fight in the war. And so what happened was, it was about white kids dying in Vietnam, which is the reason why the streets was filled with anti-war. Black people was dying. In fact, it was one story where in Philadelphia, there's one neighborhood in Philadelphia which had a higher percentage than any other area in the country of black kids going to war dying in Vietnam. But the major reason why those streets was filled with anti-war protesters, burning draft cards and stuff, was because white kids was being sent to Vietnam to die. The government figured it out. We'll make it an all-volunteer army. So when the all-volunteer army came around, that eliminated any kind of robust anti-war, because you know why? The mentality change is like, well, you signed up for it. So, you know, and what also kind of got rid of why we don't have an robust anti-war movement over here is because the media has changed.
Right.
When we was sitting home, I remember as a kid sitting home with my father watching Walter Cronkite and seeing those coffins come in from Vietnam. And when people saw that, and when people saw what war was really like, then that also fueled the anti-war movement here. It was like, no, man, we don't, this, and when the media actually revealed what war was actually like, when you had correspondents over there in Vietnam showing the carnage of war. But see, now, since then, war has been sanitized for us. We don't see coffins coming back. We don't see this. All we see is ticker tapes down at the bottom. Or U.S. The Trump administration sending 7,000 U.S. troops to Syria. Oh well. Business. Right. And then these perpetual wars that go on 20 years and stuff. We don't see what happened in Afghanistan. We don't see what happens in Syria. How many of us seen what happened in the 20 years that we've been there?
Exactly. And that's a great point, what you said right there, because, I heard somebody say that the last robust anti-war protest movement we had was against Iraq, against the war in Iraq. But when you look at the makeup of the protesters of the war in Iraq, who were they? By then, they were late, middle-aged and older people. You know why? Because they were the grown-ups.
They were the grown-ups.
The grown-ups who were protesting the Vietnam War. Right. And maybe some of their kids. But mostly, those were the Iraq War protesters were middle-aged folks who saw that we were about to do in Iraq what we did in Vietnam. So that's why now, when you go to any anti-war meeting in this country, almost anywhere, you will find a sizable number of those people in attendance in that meeting are senior citizens, because they're those kids who protested the draft in Vietnam, and they were the grown-ups who protested the Iraq War. Now, what you brought up about the media, that is extremely important. So somebody mentioned that the people in Iran are over there, they're mad, and they're burning U.S. flags and they're shouting "kill all Americans." This is where the media is complicit in making us comfortable with not only endless war, but killing a bunch of defenseless brown people who ain't done shit to us. See, Iran, like we said earlier, Iran was minding its own business, elected its own leader. The United States is over here, didn't like the leader that the Iranian people elected because he was going to socialize a bunch of stuff in Iran and give the people the benefits of the resources in Iran. The United States didn't like that, so the United States overthrew the elected leader that they wanted and installed this guy who let the United States do whatever the heck they wanted. That's what this country did in Iran. So we are once again the aggressors over there. The Iranian people were abiding by the nuclear deal. They were playing by the rules. The United States and Israel come along, lies, says that they're violating the tenets of the deal. They're building a nuclear weapon. There's no evidence of that. What does the United States do? The United States not only pulls out of the nuclear deal, but then the United States imposes more restrictive economic sanctions on the Iranian people. And this Secretary of State, I think it was Pompeo, who said in a press conference that was televised by major media outlets, said that if the Ayatollah knows what's good for his people, if he doesn't want them to starve, he will do what we tell him to.
Now, that's what Jesus would do.
Oh!
Yeah, that's what Jesus would do. He would just starve a bunch of people just so that they can get their way.
So, you mean that? So, here we are. Here this country is. I have to get myself out of identifying with this murderous government. Here this government is literally admitting that it is starving the people of a country, of another country. And we're surprised that these people are in the streets burning the flag of the country that's fucking starving them? You got it. Come on. This is the issue with the American view of politics. The reason other countries are rising up against imperialism and neoliberalism and American colonization, which has never stopped. I know that we in this country have been indoctrinated to believe that this is the greatest country on earth and we've got all this freedom and this is better than any place in the world, but millions of native people were slaughtered and millions of African people were enslaved to create this fantasy for Europeans who are now just getting to feel the oppression that we've been feeling. So this idea that this country was created based on the grit and the hard work and determination of honest people who just wanted a way of life of freedom for all people, that's a lie, y'all. That's a lie. The reason so many more white people are experiencing economic hardship today is because so many white people believed that lie and they allowed this government to oppress and abuse black, brown, native people here and black, brown, native people everywhere else around the world. What we are seeing is the result, the response, the anger in other countries toward the United States. If it freaks you out, you need to ask yourself why these people are angry at the United States. Why? I mean, they have no means to kill all Americans. They don't. The Iranians do not have any means. There's not going to be an Iranian invasion of the United States. They're not going to come over here and kill everybody. They don't have a nuclear weapon. They ain't going to kill nobody over here. They're angry at the system of United States imperialism that they have been subjected to for decades.
As we should be angry about it. You know, I mean, why would we want this done in our name? I mean, why would we want to starve people, this government starving other folks in our name? You know, I mean, we should be angry at it. We should be out there with the Iranians marching and saying, hell, if you're going to spend $1 trillion over there, spend it here. we definitely could use it here. But no, because you know what? All these think tanks and stuff that they have already got us pegged. They, overwork us, don't allow us no vacation, got us tired, looking at each other through the lenses of racism and races and all this stuff. So they already got us nullified as a population, where we're not any more resistant. And they got us so dumbed down that we look at all of these things through we don't look at these things in an intelligent way. As we look at and as we end this, we look at how our response is to the French and how the working class over there and other places are fighting just to eke out just a little bit more crumbs, while we sit over here and talk about that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. Man, we got to really man and woman up and really take this government to task and start being serious, because you know what? We are being surrounded by enemies. The United States citizen, it's going to be a point where a U.S. citizen can't go anywhere in this world and feel safe because of the actions of this government. So we better start taking this the policies of this government seriously, or we ain't going to be able to leave these shores. Trust me.
So listen, the next few days, somebody posted, Shirley Vick commented here on YouTube that an Iraqi official says that an airstrike hit cars carrying Iran-backed militia north of Baghdad, killing 5. That apparently has just happened within the time that we have been talking to you. This is going to escalate, continue to escalate quickly. It is not going to be pretty. The president that said he was going to pull all the troops out of the region from Syria just sent 3,500 troops to the Middle East today after he did this.
Welcome, folks, to the we're now at war with Iran.
So
get your asses out there in the street along with the rest of us and get in the face of this government. You know what I mean? Some of us gonna have to go to jail. Some of us gonna have to lose jobs or whatever. But if this is about the future of this country and the future of our children, our grandchildren and stuff, then we need to get from behind these screens and get our asses out there in the street.
And not just for the domestic, not just for the foreign policy issues. We're gonna end this on why this is all important for us to get involved and to really understand what's going on right now, as this government has committed this atrocious act of war, because that's what it is. This is an act of war. This same government is planning to kick 700,000 poor Americans off of food stamp assistance. Is planning to make it more difficult for disabled Americans to apply for Social Security benefits. 207 Republican congressmen just petitioned the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. I don't really care what Christians feel about abortion. Personally, that's your personal business. If you don't like abortion, then you don't have one. Our business as Christians is not to tell other people how to live their life. That's not our job. That's what white Christians told you you're supposed to do. And there's a reason for that. Maybe we'll talk about that another day. But this government is also in the process of is about to propose an executive order to criminalize homelessness. Okay? Which means all these homeless people that were created from the last recession that the first black president didn't do shit to help, now they're going to be put in jail and they're going to be part of the prison industrial complex, which is also a money-making scheme for the other group of people who are tied to the corporate control and influence over government. We were the fodder for the prison industrial complex before, but see, they're running out of us to lock up, so now they're coming after y'all. So there are all these things that this government, your prescription drugs are not getting any cheaper under this administration. I don't care what they keep telling you. There is no plan to replace the ACA, otherwise known as Obamacare, coming from this government. So when the Supreme Court finally does rule it unconstitutional and get rid of it, a whole lot of people gonna die. That's just the truth. If you're not concerned with what's going on with what this government is doing in our name in the rest of the world, be mad about all of that. Be mad about what they're taking from you and blaming it on us. Be mad about that and do something.
That's it.
Thanks a lot for joining us on this special edition of Live and Coffee Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation. You can catch us every day now on By Any Means Necessary
right.
on Sputnik Radio. You can listen live from 2 to 3 and you can watch us live from 3 to 4 on Facebook. I do try to share the stream when I remember, when I have time. Sundays, 7 p.m.
Yep.
We are going to try to stick to that schedule of Sundays at 7 p.m. for episodes of Live and Coffee Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation. Listen, if you like what you see and hear from us in Luqman Nation, consider becoming a patron. You can find us on Patreon under Luqman Nation, LuqMannation. $3, $5, $7 a month. All we're asking, if 10 people do one of those things, we would be set to do so much more other stuff. But if you can't do monthly contributions, consider contributing a one-time donation to Luqman Nation through PayPal. You can find us there on PayPal me, Luqman Nation, LuqMannation. It is Friday, January 3rd, 2020. Be good to each other, as always. And peace, y'all. Because now we are going to have to fight for it. That was good. Where's the dog?
Down here on my side.